5 or so. It's so thrilling, very, very thrilling to be here on a Saturday evening during the Stanley Cup final, and there's no hockey game. Well, hockey night in Canada is on vacation.
I think you mentioned it. I think you mentioned it the last time we had a show on Wednesday that it's only a marquee night for hockey in Canada, nowhere else. So, you know.
And by nowhere else, you mean America.
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is. Okay. So unfortunately, I guess the first story is missed opportunity by the Toronto Maple Leafs. I believe they were trying to get Joe Sacco, and it sounds like he's going elsewhere.
Yeah. So it turns out he was originally rumored to be coming to Toronto, but as it currently stands, they're actually going to. I think he's going to end up with. He's being added to the New York Rangers coaching staff. So. You know, David Quinn and Joe Sacco and Ty Hennies have all been named assistant coaches there. Now,
but Darren, why would you want a job in Toronto as an assistant coach? It would just mean he'd have to be a head coach in Seattle.
Well, you know, it's funny how all of that works and how everything links together. But yeah, you know, after sorry, I'm having issues with words today. They hired Derek Lalonde as an assistant coach, and that was after Lane Lambert left. So, you know, the opportunity for Sacco, I think, works better for him if he goes to the Rangers. It gives him more opportunities here. So,
Lane Lambert, the next Leaf assistant coach to go to Seattle. They've had a non-Leaf assistant coach in between, but their first one was a assistant coach in Toronto. So. The big thing here is that, you know, getting coaches like Joe Sacco, who are almost good enough to be head coaches and have a little bit of experience as head coaches. He had it with Boston. As the Leafs tend to do, they can. This is where Toronto, New York, and the big cities, right, where they can afford to outspend the opposition, right? The other teams that don't have, you know, the kind of money they do. So, yeah, so you want to get the best quality coaches you can get. And, you know, that's part of the attraction, I think, if you're a player and you're going, well, if I go here where they have all these great coaches, especially if I'm young, I can learn something. So it's too bad there for the Leafs, but, you know, it is what it is. So John Tavares, 34 years old. What do the Leafs do with him?
That's a very good question. You know, at the end of the day, they have to try to sign him to potentially a team-friendly deal. I think that's their best bet at this point. You know, it should ideally be a long-term contract. You know,
longish.
Well, longish. Yeah, no, that's fair.
What's a long-term contract for a 34-year-old? I don't know. I would just say, you know, I would basically go 1-year contracts. He wants to play in Toronto. Do 1-year contracts. Next year we discuss it again. It's free. It's free lunch for him. You know, he's on.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically looking at you know, if he decides to go year by year, he always has the opportunity, depending on how much better he does, to amp things up. So,
well, even look at it as you and I or anyone else who works for a living, and not that you want it to happen, because that it could be careful what you wish for, but you know, if let's say you have a job where you get on the bus or the train 45 minutes a day or an hour a day. Or there's a company 2 minutes away, you literally could walk there. There's a let's be honest, regular folks. I'm putting you I'm putting you and I in regular folks land, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a financial return there, and while the job is stressful, what if the stress is about equal with both jobs, one 50 minutes away and one across the street? Life would be a little better, because that'd be an extra 2 hours a day. You can do whatever you want other than get to work and come back home. And that's what I think, honestly. John Tavares has the personality that he's a good neighbor. He's not a guy that Leaf fans will anyway berate him. He's, he stays very low profile, low key, and he gives you an honest effort. And he's not perfect. Like, can you imagine, Aaron? Leaf fans pull punches when it comes to him. Nobody keys on how slow he is, because he's a little slower than, you know what I mean? There's stuff that's wrong with him that's no different than is wrong with Marner. But because Marner gets paid so much money, and Tavares, doesn't talk about, other than he says, I want to be a Leaf, and he signs a contract with the Leafs, right? There's not all this other stuff in between, right? So Leaf fans respect him, I think. I think they respect him, and I think he deserves it. And this is a good place for him.
No, it's a very good fit. He's got a history in the city. Obviously, he's got the growing family here now. There was talk. I know that he's been earning 11, but there was talk between paying Tavares somewhere in the area of $8 million a year on a 3-year deal versus $6 million a year on a 5-year deal. The money that they'd save by signing him for 5 could be spent on other players to improve the Leafs roster. I mean, that $2 million that you're going to potentially be saving over the course of the deal.
I would give him a 1-year contract for. Yeah. If he wants that much money, I'd only give him a 1-year contract, and then show me what you do this year, and you pay as you go. I mean, just like, you pick up a phone, you go, hey, how much? Like, he's not in a position where, he can say, I'm going to go somewhere else. He can say that. But the question really is, who's going to be willing to pay him that kind of money, and especially on a 4 or 5-year deal?
Now, and at the end of the day, it's really his decision if he wants to stick around. So if he gets a better offer, I wouldn't blame him if he upped and went somewhere else. Our obligation to him as of June 30th ends. He is under no obligation to continue to play here. However, based on the very clear fact that at 34, he has clearly expressed a desire to stay with the team. And he's done a much better job of expressing that he wants to stay with the team than Marner has.
And he's shown that he has an ability to do something. The unfortunate truth of the matter is, Aaron, they need guys that'll get them into the playoffs. I'm all on board on that. But, we heard the general manager talk about DNA. And I have I'm going to use the example of last night. Marchand scored an overtime goal. That's the DNA he's talking about. The DNA where when push comes to shove, an athlete does something not to have a great record or a great statistical envelope, but when the team really needs somebody to do something, the DNA is in that person to accomplish it. You've got Marchand, you've got Bennett, just in this Edmonton series against Florida. You got McDavid and Draisaitl. You got 4 guys there who in these playoffs have established that they have been difference makers. Without Draisaitl and McDavid, they don't make it to the Stanley Cup final. No. Without Bennett, right, and Marchand, they don't make it past the Leafs. So when the GM talks about DNA, it's more about the DNA is some players do not attend. And that's the problem. If you're not there when the big games are going, Aaron, and unfortunately, this long-winded recitation is all about Tavares is not a Game 7 winner. He'll get you to Game 7. He'll get you to the playoffs. But this team can't afford to spend $6 to $8 million on a guy who's going to get them to the playoffs.
Yeah, there's no point in spending the money on somebody to get you there if they can't also carry you over the hump. And I know
for that money,
it sounds cruel and heartless to say it, but you have to recognize that you need to win. And just having somebody that gets you there isn't enough.
The way I'm looking at it now, and it's becoming abundantly clear to me, and as it has, especially with the core four situation, if you're going to pay somebody more than $8 million, they better be somebody that does things in the playoffs, because you don't have many tickets of $8 million per to be able to say, okay, well, let's get 4 or 5 guys, because we know this to be true. This is factual. We know that the core four could not get over the hump. And every time the playoffs rolled around, they went looking for guys for $1.5 million, for $3 million, that they felt might put them over the hump. We've learned a very important lesson about those $3 million guys. Sometimes they can't. They don't pan out. What the Leafs have done better than the $2-3 million guys are a couple of the $1 million guys they've had over the years. And we just saw one former captain of the Montreal Canadiens. He did something in the playoffs that made a difference, but he doesn't have the ability to do it at his age through a whole playoff, right?
Yeah.
So, Marchand, love him or hate him, I have all the respect in the world for that guy. I don't like the rat part of him, but the clutch part of him is adorable. Like, who wouldn't want that kind of result from a player in these critical situations? So don't like him as his BS. But, somebody said something last night. They're saying, he's a small guy. So maybe the BS is necessary to create some room for himself as a small guy. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here with you, buddy.
No, I hear you. It is true that he is. He's basically, him and Corey Perry, I think, are the two guys that are basically ageless
right
in this series here. And you look at Perry's 39 years old now, and I understand that his style of play has changed a little bit, mainly because he can't do the same sort of thing that he used to do when he was a younger player, because he'll get lit up for it. That's just the way it's going to go. But both he and Marchand, who are now 37, that's one of those. It's in them. They are that kind of player. They have the DNA. They have the ability to take it all the way if they can. And I really actually wouldn't mind seeing Corey Perry become a 2-time Stanley Cup winner. That I think would be interesting.
Here's the point I'll make with you, Aaron. It's very simple. Corey Perry, all right? Corey Perry, the guy we're talking about, that you're spouting beautiful things and words about and talking about how wonderful a player is, he earns $1.15 million a year. Now we're talking about a guy, Tavares, who we want to pay $6 and $8 million. Which one would you rather have in the playoffs?
Honestly, legitimately, I would probably rather have Perry, because he's been there and he's been further and he's got a cup. It's no offense to John.
No.
But, in this particular situation, at this particular point, with the playoffs being what they are, and with Corey Perry's track record being what it is, I would not mind having him on my team in the slightest. So, and
here's my belief that to get a guy like Perry on your team, I think we're on the same page here. I'm going to assume it. You got to have a team that he wants to be on. Yeah, you've got to make the team appealing to bring the players. That's that guy in particular, the guys with the DNA that you need have an inert understanding of what it takes to win, because they've done it before and they're still doing it now. Because no one can say for $1.15 million a year, here you are. You got a forward playing with two of the best players in the world because the guy that normally plays on their line got hurt. And Perry, you could throw him on the second, third, and even fourth line if you had to. And I'm not suggesting that he could have the same impact on the fourth line as he does on the first line. But the point is, he's capable. And this is what the playoffs is all about. It's all about availability, right? So now he's available to pick up where Hyman can't be there. So, and that 1.15 million is cheap for a goal in overtime to win a series or to set up the win in a series. It's a lesson well learned. So what is that? What did we say there? So the point of a player wanting to play for a team says a lot about the players that are on the team at that moment. This is what the GM is getting at. See, plus and minus to make the team better. Sometimes removing someone off a team is a plus. Sometimes you get a better team because you subtract somebody. And the inference is there now. Who do you subtract in Toronto to bring in guys with DNA and that you can afford to pay?
And that really seems to be it, right? I mean, the individual that you'd want to bring in may not necessarily want the team that's there, as we've just finished talking about. If you swing it so that that one player is no longer with the team, that instantly makes the team more appealing. So again, you're right in the whole addition by subtraction.
It's the same. People say, "Wow, that coach, wherever he goes, his teams win." It's not just about his coaching; it's about him going, like Paul Maurice, great coach. Do you think maybe the team he has any impact on how good a coach he is? You see what I'm saying? Part of being a great coach is recognizing the team that you have to coach can do what you expect it to do. And this is what the Leafs have to do. They got to remove the player first mentality and change it to team first mentality. And anybody who thinks the Toronto Maple Leafs with the core four in place is team first doesn't understand the real issue at play here. That's why the Leafs have a problem. So I admire Marchand. I admire Bennett for what they do. I don't like what they do, but I would surely appreciate if they did it on the team that's here as opposed to the team that's there and coming to visit. So that's the reality of sports, right? My bad guy, the worse he is, my bad guy, no, there's nothing wrong with that guy. He's helping us win. Yep. But he looks different on the other team. That's
really what it boils down to, man. I'd rather have him here being a bad guy than there being a bad guy, right. Like you said. So, that's what it comes down to.
And if Marchand's playing for the Leafs, he doesn't score in overtime to eliminate them.
There's also that.
That's the way it works. That's the way sports works, folks. No offense, but when it comes to stuff like that, being politically correct in sports, in wanting to win, is a difficult thing to do. It is very difficult. There's probably a faction of people in Toronto or Leaf fans or whatever go, I don't want that kind of jerk playing on my team. Well, then you're just going to have to succeed in a different way. And unfortunately, that's one of the obvious ways to succeed. So teams that have players that cross the line and upset the other team are a benefit. You want to go Jays?
We can go Jays.
Let's go with the Jays. What happens over the next 12?
Well, if we're looking at what's going to happen over the next 12 games, that could go a long way towards fleshing out what's going to happen. Now, that article is actually from Monday, June 2nd, which was supposed to be used on our June 4th show. So obviously, we're not looking at the next 12 at this point. We're looking at the next 7 or 8. But the Jays have actually been on a bit of a tear lately. which speaks well. They're back up over 500. Addison Barger had a 2-run home run, and Bichette had a 2-run single to help the Jays beat the Twins 6-4. So that's a definite positive. 2 weeks ago, it was doom and gloom after getting swept over 3 games in Tampa. And that was, I think, one of the worst series I've seen them play in a while. It almost got worse. They got a total on that 6-game road trip of 6 combined runs. That's not anything that's ever going to work for them, especially not in Major League Baseball. But the way that they've been trending lately, it's gone a long way towards dispelling some of that doom and gloom that surrounds the team. Where we end up coming out of this is going to be a good indicator as to how the rest of the season is going to go, whither goest sort of thing,
I think to reframe the 12-game thing, how I would frame it is we've got Scherzer throwing live BP. We got Scherzer who's he's on a path to start again, right?
Yep.
I would like to see, now that some of the bats, the supportive bats are doing a good job, and see the stars of the Jays, if they can start carrying their own weight. I'd like to see, with a couple of starts by Scherzer, see how the team trends. 2 reasons. One is, if they need something, they've got to identify it. If they really have serious intentions of making the playoffs, then they need to make a commitment to putting a team on the field that can make it to the playoffs. Waiting permanently or until the trade deadline to determine whether they're a seller or a buyer. I think, to your point, to your 12-game thing, what you're talking about isn't about figuring out what they're going to do when the trade deadline comes. They want to know before the trade deadline comes, what's their pitching stat in that stat? What's pitching standing at? What's the hitting? What's the fielding? What's this team? Can they make the playoffs? And in turn, by making the playoffs, give themselves a shot to win maybe a series, be a winner in September. I think that's the key that your comment points at. And I'm just framing it a little differently because time has passed.
No, that's true. That is basically what we're looking at here, is looking for a better way to reestablish themselves at this point, to find a better way forward. Just looking at the way the team has been going lately, again, it's one of those slightly positive trends that we're looking at here. So I can't be too upset about that. When you look at the way that they've performed, it's showing positive signs, I think.
I'm having a little trouble with the Phillies, but they're a really good team.
Well, they currently are. A lot of things can change. But the fact of the matter is, at this point in the season, we are actually sitting second in our division at 35-29, right behind the New York Yankees.
Yeah, but still not in a wild card position. They're close.
Yeah, we're not exactly where we need to be. Ideally, I would prefer, obviously, that we were in first. But with Detroit, New York, and Houston leading their respective divisions, it's currently Toronto, Tampa, and Cleveland sitting in wild card spots, with Minnesota and Seattle just outside looking in.
Well, what they got to do is they got to win. I mean, the fans, the fans have been very loyal. The organization has spent money to be a great host, right? For the games, they've set themselves up that that people can go to the game, enjoy being there. And now, why not make wins be another reason why they enjoy being there? That's the thing that I wonder about. So Francis records only 5 outs, and unfortunately, Philly did a real number on the Jays, 8-3, didn't they?
Yeah, they certainly did. Now, that was as of Tuesday's game. So I think what you've got there, Frank, is the show copy from Wednesday.
Oh, do I?
Most of the show copy that I sent you earlier today for the 7th.
Oh, well, then that's my bad, because I don't know why that is.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I seemed a little out of sorts because when you opened with Tavares, I was like, I thought we'd covered that already, but I wasn't 100% sure.
4:38 p.m. June 25th.
Should start with OHL standout goalie earns Maple Leafs camp invite.
Okay, hang on.
No worries.
Come on.
But yeah, you know.
Yes. Okay, my bad. I don't know why. I did bring that. I did. Well, anyway.
I mean, the good news is that the Jays have managed to put together 2 wins now over the Twins. Not only did they win 6-4 yesterday, but they just finished up winning 5-4 today. So that result is fixed as of about 20 minutes ago. So it looks like the Jays are doing well for themselves. Again, you know, this is one of those things where they actually came from behind and got 2 runs in the 8th to take the lead before Minnesota tried to make it close, but they ended up shaving it. So Springer delivered again with a late home run. The Jays over the past few games, especially since last Wednesday, have basically been on the right side of the ledger. After that 8-3 loss on Tuesday, they beat the Phillies 2-1 and 9-1, and now beat the Twins 6-4 and 5-4. So we're sitting pretty at this point. You know, we're 4-0 into that first 12 games that we were talking about from Wednesday there. So, you know, we're in good stead right now.
Okay. Yes, I think I sorted it out here.
Okay.
It's because my emails didn't arrive until after. They're still arriving.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Well, we'll blame Rogers for that.
No, it just, it doesn't matter. It's all timing. Okay. So, you have here that you have reason to believe that the Leafs are interested in Marchand.
Yeah.
And also the question still is out there. I heard that Mitch Marner, word is that the Leafs are still on his radar.
I mean, that would track. They are the team so far that's been most willing to pay him the most money that he's been asking. So it would make sense that they would still be there. But another possibility could be sending Marner to the Kings. It sounds a little bit odd, but at least they'd be getting him out of the division if they were. The main reason why is because Kopitar and Fiala need help out there. And, you know, with the kind of guy that can get you 95 to 110 points in a season, the way that Marner can, especially when it comes to assists, that would be a boon for them. Getting him to help out Anze Kopitar and Kevin Fiala would be one of the biggest helps that LA could give themselves. We saw in the playoffs how the Kings were unable to dethrone the Oilers for a 4th straight year, even with home ice advantage. They still lost in the first round. I'm pretty sure they could continue to keep losing in the first round because it's something that Mitch Marner's used to as well. But his scoring punch would not be remiss with those two. I mean, imagine a Fiala, Danault, and Marner line, or a power combination of Doughty, Marner, Fiala, Quentin Byfield. Like, oh, that would be a lot of fun.
During the
not so much for great fans of his and you know, uprooting his family and moving coasts and changing countries, but you know, you got to go and try to figure out where he's going to do the most good and where he can help himself the most. And Los Angeles might be it.
Hey, look, you know, he can make it all business, and there's nothing wrong. He has the right to make it all business. The part that I don't like is the league knows, it's a matter of public knowledge, that the zero tax state thing is an inherent advantage for the teams who have that. The league is aware of it. We all are aware of it. The media is aware of it. I was aware of it 10 years ago, and I had people laughing at me when I talked about it. But it's definitely an advantage, and the league doesn't care about removing that advantage. They don't care.
No,
because the way it plays out, they're okay with. So what they're saying is, we like that these teams are winning, and we're okay with the teams that are losing. And that to me is not sporting, because what we're seeing is if you know there's an advantage somewhere and you're not doing anything about it, but it's not stuff that I find unusual with the National Hockey League.
No, and let's be fair, it's not necessarily in their best interest to start equalizing tax situations for teams. They're there to make money. If a team takes advantage of the fact that they're there to make money and they've figured out a way to get that done, cool. But the NHL is not willing to step in and try to make equalization payments to balance out or reduce or eliminate the competitive advantage of sales tax. That's right, not,
but still, then they should get rid of the cap and let teams spend what they can, because you're telling one side of the equation that you're allowed to have an advantage because of where you are, but you're not allowed to have an advantage because of where you are. If you're in a place like, why should New York, LA, Chicago, who already have the handicap of being big cities and players have to pay more in taxes, why should they have to accept the fact that they get to be handicapped and ignore the advantage that they have? It's the same. Like, if you're in New York, you have an advantage because they're a team that has more money. But it's okay to go to a city that charges less tax, so their money goes further. It's the same thing in reverse. You can't. That's why the cap is incorrect. But they could do something, Aaron, mathematically. That it's not like there aren't enough accountants in the world to figure it out. That they would. They actually determine how much money goes in the slush fund, the players kickback money, the money that they don't touch until later. They do that. It's not like they don't deny players money. They do. It's just a question of how they want to do it. Like I said, it'll change when enough of the teams who are hurt by this start making noise and start, so right now it's probably six teams that have an advantage, 7 teams that have an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And there are teams in the middle who it's not that bad a deal. But I would lump all the Canadian teams and the big city American teams in the same little world where they pay the most, more than anybody else, because it creates a handicap that puts the other teams over the top and has them have difficulty bringing in players.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's not in the NHL's best interest to try to change, local laws in order to find better competitive balance for their teams. It's on the bean counters to get that sorted out. So.
Yeah, but still, if your intent is to be fair, then don't pretend you're being fair when you're not.
No, and you know what? Honestly, the number of times that Gary threw to Bill Daly to answer questions during the press conference indicates to me that Bettman's got to go. It's beyond time. It's just frustrating.
Well, if you're the Rangers, if you're New York hockey fans, and you're getting the message that your team has a harder time winning because your team has to pay players more than other teams, and you all have the same limited income or limited ability to spend, when those big cities start getting hurt more and more and more, and the Rangers have been, they're a great example of the cap really hurting them.
Yeah.
As soon as they overspend on one guy, because they want, and then all of a sudden the dominoes start to fall, right? And the teams that don't spend are the ones that Carolina, God, they're under the cap all the time. So they're they don't have problems competing.
Well, there are even some teams that struggle to make the salary floor. Like, there is a certain minimum amount that you have to spend, but there's also the maximum amount you have to spend. And, you look at some of the teams that are out there, like Columbus, Carolina to a certain extent, some of the other teams that have a lot of guys coming off the cap, they're now underneath the salary floor. And this particular year upcoming, if I'm not mistaken, the salary floor is actually supposed to be $70.6 million. As it currently stands, if the cap floor is supposed to be $70.6 million, I can look at about, let's see here. If we're looking at current projected cap hits, 8, 9, there's 9 teams currently that are underneath the salary floor. Funnily enough, one of those is the Maple Leafs, but that's not going to last long.
No,
that's only because Marner and Tavares are coming off the books, as well as 7 or 8 other guys.
It's one of the most expensive guys they have.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, but still, at the end of the day, what the Leafs have to do, and the Leafs are the opposite of Carolina. Carolina is the team that says, "I'll take your player, and I'll pay him, and by the way, your first round draft choice." That's what Carolina's done the past 10 years. They've gotten picks because they're hovering around the floor, right? And that's how they've gotten players that otherwise they wouldn't have gotten if they didn't have the cap. Like, the cap space is something it has value. It has true value. Now, if you're able to stay with the cap space being a little lower, and then on top of that, the guys you're paying earn a little more because they're in your state, goodness gracious, that's anyway, instead of dwelling it forever, all I'll say is if the competition level is so narrow in the National Hockey League, that so many teams are so close together, and the difference between one team and another is a little bit, when the little bit is you can pay other players, your players more, there's a bit of an advantage, but it is what it is. So what's happening with the Habs? They're losing a right-hand shot defenseman. Nobody wants to do that.
No, nobody ever wants to do that sort of thing. But, Gustav Lindstrom wasn't actually initially a Canadiens draft pick. He was selected 38th in the 2017 draft. He's basically signed a deal with Djurgården. They've signed him to a 5-year deal. Now, this really shouldn't be that much of a surprise. He was last playing with the Rocket. But because right-handed shot defensemen are so rare, it is difficult for the Habs at this point to lose a player like that. He's now signed up and locked up in Europe for the next 5 years. So I don't know if they'll be able to swing something to try to get him back, but we shall see.
The Senators owner is jumping in because there's concern about Batherson being traded.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors about that. But from the Canadian Golf and Culture Club, the site of this year's alumni tournament, Michael Andlauer finally said, "Look, I need to just sort of settle something here." As one of the trademarks, Andlauer has always been very blunt and outspoken when it comes to this sort of thing. He's just saying, "Look, hey, as it currently stands, I get it. You guys have to generate clicks and everything like that. But no, we're not currently interested in trading Drake Batherson. So kind of appreciate it if you guys would lay off on that."
Absolutely. And you'd expect them to do that. All right. So what's this? Ottawa Senators shed light on Nick Jensen's injury, still uncertain on recovery time.
Yeah, and again, this was coming from the Senators alumni charity golf tournament. Nick Jensen actually had corrective surgery in New York on Monday to repair an undisclosed lower body injury. Steos said that he didn't really want to get into it, but it is an undisclosed LBI. He didn't go into get into specifics of the procedure involved, but we do believe it was the hip that had been that he'd been operated on. Now, Steos said that he's doing very well. That there's a period of time that he'll be out for, but we're not sure of the timeline. Knowing Nick and the way he's going to attack his rehab, can he expedite his return to play? Most likely with him, but I don't really have a timeline on it. So, like a lot of what Bill Daly has been saying, and a lot of stuff that we've been seeing coming out about postseason stuff here, there's a lot of vagary going on out there. They're not nearly being as forthcoming as they potentially could be, but I understand it. It's their players. You don't want to try to give an advantage to any other teams. So hopefully Nick will recover in time for the upcoming season, and looking forward to seeing him back on the ice.
Let's talk about the Jets now.
Sure. Alphonse Frey completed his first season of pro hockey. He put up some decent results. He scored 2 goals and added 8 points in 29 games for Björklöven in Hockey Allsvenskan, which is Sweden's second-tier league. Hockey Allsvenskan has actually been a very good place for developing younger European projects. He's going to make his SHL debut next season, playing with Tirma IK, a team featuring several NHL-affiliated prospects and former NHL Magnus Pajärvi. The Jets selected Frey with the 37th overall pick in 2024. He was the first selection made by the Jets, and they were, the Jets got their flowers for it. He's 6'1", 196. He's got strong offensive instincts. He's known for his playmaking ability. His excellent skating is highlighted by both the speed that he generates, but also his edge work, and he can distribute. He can distribute the puck very well. So they're very happy with that.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna roll back to I've been doing a little bit of research while on the air, and I just thought I wanted to mention this: the Florida Panthers. If I told you Aaron Ekblad and Alexander or Barkov make the same amount of money, and that money is $925,000 a year, how would you feel?
Offended. They should be paying a lot more. They should be paid a lot more.
I'm looking at this and I'm going, I got to take a look and see when this was created. Oh, shoot. That's why. January 2016. That's funny. I was searching to see who are the best bargains in the NHL. And I'm trying to see here. Too bad it doesn't have the date on the top. But
I was going to say Barkov's most recent salary, his contract, is paying him $10 million a year up until 28-29. So
yeah, and they're looking at this. That's why that's
a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, and anyway, as far as salaries go, that they're going to. You've got basically, you've got the Flames are a team that's trying to become a playoff contender. And for them, it's players like Jacob Battaglia that have to do something, right? If they can help ease the pressure on paying guys or using guys that they have to pay more. So what's up with him?
Well, he's just had a career best junior season. He got 40 goals and 90 points in 68 games with a +13 with the France. He's got a spot on the OHL third All-Star team. Unfortunately, while some of their other prospects are headed to the Wranglers, Battaglia unfortunately cannot do the same, as he's not 20 years old and hasn't played 4 seasons in the CHL. Gryden doesn't fit that particular description either, but he was drafted out of the USHL. But the Flames faithful can take some comfort in the fact that Battaglia fits the bill for what Calgary's looking for a little bit further down the line. He scores points, a lot of them, but he also scores on special teams. He had 12 power play goals this past season. That's tied for 12th in power play goals to go along with his 16 assists. Calgary's been kind of having issues on the man advantage, but if Jacob gets the opportunity to join the big boys, he can spark something. At this point next year, he's going to be turning 20 and eligible to play for the Wranglers. If he plays the way that he does, the current players themselves will be the beneficiaries. The most exciting thing that I'm seeing right now is the opportunity for him to join Kadri, who just came off his past season scoring a career best 35 goals. Given Battaglia's playmaking abilities, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see him churn even more goals out of Kadri if he's not traded before his contract ends in 2029. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the kid do it.
He's the kind of guy that, teams love him. He's that guy that other teams don't love playing against. Let's talk about the Canucks and head coach from the Wild is now an assistant coach.
Yeah. So general manager of the Minnesota Wild said that Brett McLean would be returning for the 2025-2026 season as Iowa's head coach, despite Iowa not playing well. However, McLean, as at yesterday at 1:25 p.m., accepted a job back in the NHL with the Vancouver Canucks as their assistant coach. McLean spent 3 seasons as an assistant coach with the Wild from 2020 to 2023. The Wild made the Stanley Cup playoffs in all 3 seasons that he was an assistant coach there, and had a 134, 63, and 23 regular season record, which was the 6th best point percentage in the NHL during that span. So Iowa unfortunately didn't fare as well. They went 27, 37, and 8 in both the seasons that McLean was their head coach. They finished 30th in the AHL in 24-25 and 29th in 23-24. The Wild are going to have to look for a new coach, but at least with McLean jumping back into the NHL, he's not going to be a head coach at this point. He's going to be an assistant.
So to correct the mistake I made before, I hope I'm right this time. I'm looking at 24-25 season. So we talked about Zach Hyman, $5.5 million. Context. Tavares, more than that? You know,
this is where it gets difficult, right? Because you're starting to pay for name, and you're paying for cash it, and you're paying for a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to John Tavares that thanks to his fame, you may not necessarily want to, you know, and it's difficult.
And then you've got a guy like Cale Makar who makes $9 million a year. Now that's a lot of money, but where he fits into the category of defenseman, like where he fits, he's a top 1 or 2 in the league for defenseman.
No, he definitely is. I
don't understand how the Leafs can't negotiate. It's like, I don't understand. They don't seem to use comparables.
Yeah, I often wonder like how they decide on the salary numbers that they decide on. You know,
it's just ridiculous. Like if I know it's kind of like expecting, like Matthew Tkachuk makes $9.5 million. Most of that $9.5 million is because he's an Estes server, right? Yeah. But $9.5 million for an Estes server, I get it, but at the end of the day, it's about salaries, and it's about being frugal and being insistent that you want to win. So to win, you're going to have to ask guys, if you want to be a part of this, I need your help to win. The Dallas Stars fired their coach, Peter DeBoer. I have a feeling that his goaltender is not disappointed.
Well, this isn't the first time that he's sewered a goalie. The most recent time was Marc-Andre Fleury. So it's not a surprise that this sort of thing has come up again. For some reason, Pete just can't seem to keep his trap shut when it comes to this sort of thing. I mean, he was with them for 3 years. He's been in charge since 2022. They've made it to the semifinals a couple different times. It just seems that they can't get over the hump. The notice that they released from Jim Nill said that he'd been relieved of his coaching duties effective immediately. They're going to search for a new head coach. After careful consideration, the statement said, "We believe that a new voice is needed in our locker room to push us closer to our goal of winning the Stanley Cup. We'd like to thank Pete for everything that he's helped our organization achieve over the past 3 seasons and wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors."
Absolutely, and that's what they should do. Okay, so Marner, Leafs. What do you have the odds at right now? How close is he to? It's not 50-50.
No, it's definitely not.
It's not 50-50. I figure I'm going to say I'm going to go at the 10% chance that he stays a Leaf.
Yeah,
I think
it's as high as 10%.
Yeah, because I think 10% speaks to it speaks to his desire to be a Maple Leaf. Mm-hmm. I just happen to think that 10% matches how much he wants to be a Maple Leaf, and he's the guy in control.
Yeah, he really is the guy in control at this point.
So but he did say one thing, or at least rumors suggest that he'd be okay with a sign and trade. And the sign and trade, the reason he'd be okay with that, and the reason I think it might be possible is because for him to sign and trade would be an opportunity to go to a team that is already up against the cap and would have to find money to pay him. So it's not a question of him going in and having assets depart just because of him. It's just because of, the asset that the team would want. Mm-hmm. And I think the Leafs would be better off. What I'd like to see, and it might happen, and I'd like to see it. And the Leafs have had a lot of luck with 3-team moves, because with Calgary, when they made that trade for Gilmore, there were other teams involved with some stuff that was going on, and they did some flipping. And I think that would be the best way to go. If they can get a couple of players that other teams actually want, but the Leafs have no reason to keep them, whether it's because of salary or strictly because of salary, but they're players teams want, then if they could flip them for picks, like I'd like to see the Leafs come out of losing Marner. If they could get 2-3 first rounders, if they could work that out, if they could make that happen, this team will have a lot easier time continuing their record of making the playoffs.
This is going to sound goofy, but can you imagine if the Leafs decided to go out and try to sign a whole bunch of guys that they thought that other teams might want, and they couldn't find a trading partner, what it would look like if they started the season with those players?
Well,
congratulations, boys. Here's your Franken team.
Yeah. No, I guess, for me, the problem is, and we've gone, full circle. The problem is, can you create a team? You and I seem to believe in this pretty heavily, and that is that if you really want to bring in good players, there's got to be good players here to begin with.
Yeah.
There's got to be players they can believe in. First of all, you got your coaching staff. You want to go to a team where you believe the coaches, you can work with the coaches. You got to believe it's an organization that understands winning, and that they've begun the process of creating a winner. Are the Leafs an attractive team without Marner for anybody? Can they pay them a reasonable amount of money instead of paying Marner more than he's worth, bringing another person that they're paying more than they're worth? This is the problem with the Leafs, and that's why draft picks, and that's why the draft is so important, Aaron. Because can you imagine if the Leafs had a couple more nice players like that are on, it's just that's the problem with the Leafs, is they don't have enough draft picks, and they don't have a first rounder in the next 3 years. The most important thing they got to do is they've got to attract players in other ways, college players that have, we've seen a couple already, players that decided not to sign with their original draft team, and they've stayed out long enough that now they become a free agent, right? They've got to win a lot of those wars. I think that's what they have to do, because they can't do it through the draft.
No, and with the fact that they don't have a lot of first round draft picks in the next couple of seasons, I think speaks to unfortunately the inexperience of Dubas and the poor quality of the contracts that they had set up under previous GMs, because they had to gift a lot of draft picks just to get teams to take players. Do you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm going to throw this in.
Very counterintuitive. Hey, I'm going to give you a really good player. Take this draft pick too.
Yeah.
I mean, and then because of that, and I look at a Hyman, I mean, I'm thinking now, I'm saying they couldn't have kept him for 6. Like he went to Edmonton for 5.5. And I know hindsight is what it is, but there was never, I don't think there's a doubt in your mind, and I'm assuming that, but there was definitely never a doubt in my mind that I would have kept Hyman. I would have let Marner go. At the time, that's what I said, and I still believe it now because it's obvious. So now it's showing, right? So
it's bearing itself out. It's proving itself to be true.
At least got to make good decisions that are based on contracts that are right, that are team friendly, contracts that are good for the team, and they've got to stop duplicating talent. Replicating the same, getting 3 players that do the same thing, and now you don't have a balance. And that's essentially was the downfall of the core 4. They had 4 really good offensive players, but there are other kinds of players necessary on a team.
Yeah. And that's the problem, right? They unweighted themselves. Everything was on one
We'll
side.
find out.
Well,
If they can trade, I would be okay with this. I would be okay with them trading Matthews and bringing Marner in.
you think so?
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
All right. It would be.
I don't want both of them on the same team. I don't want both of them on the same team.
No, and that's definitely fair.
I don't want them both on the same team. They've got to get rid of one of them, and the easiest one to get rid of right now is Marner, and that's the reality of it. It's not like the GM didn't tip his hand when he said, we may not even make him an offer. He said that out loud. We may not even make him an offer.
Well, at the end of the day, that is certainly the GM's. It is certainly a call by the GM. But as Marner has said, he doesn't want to negotiate in season, and he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it in public. So we may never know exactly what's gone back and forth between.
Can you imagine if they could trade Matthews and Marner and end up with let's say five first-round draft picks, or very close to that, and a couple of young players, and I just think that the mentality of this Leaf management team is more Stanley Cup playoff friendly than the previous one, and it's almost like you have no choice. The Leafs have no choice; they got to flush those guys.
No, they did. They certainly do. There's a certain amount of house cleaning that needs to happen now. So that this team can get on with doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is winning championships. There's no way we should have had a drought this long.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yep.
A lot of fun, Aaron. I got to Monday. We got to wait till Monday till the next hockey game.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a preview and a lead-in show again, but that's fine.
All right. So Edmonton loses in overtime. A missed call on too many men on the ice with about 2-3 minutes before the goal was scored, where it was an obvious penalty. It wasn't a judgment call. You're not allowed to join the play when the guy that you're replacing is still on the ice. It's just that simple. The rule is very, very clear, and the rule was broken, and there was no call. So, hopefully, I saw a note somewhere that apparently Bennett was warning the goaltender, Skinner.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got to read the article. No, what was he warning? It was clickbait. What was he warning him about? It'll be interesting to find out. Maybe don't drink coffee with cream in it, maybe?
Oh, this is possible. I mean, if he's lactose intolerant, that could be a big thing.
Aaron, thanks for doing this, buddy.
All right, Frank. We'll see you on Monday.
You can follow us on Candid Frank Stanishi on YouTube, 10:30. See you next time, folks. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and hockey's back on Monday again.